I mean, what's Pro Football Focus doing? Last week they had Brady. This week they got Brady.
We're literally doing it differently from everybody else.
As a matter of fact, moving forward from this point on, I will not make reference to PFF.
Ready to get into it?
Yeah.
All right. We're going team by team.
I would be very careful about slinging stone.
Am I going to get sued?
We got legal on this?
I like football season, and all the things that go with it.
Welcome into the PFF NFL podcast. Steve Palazzolo, Sam Monson. We're live on YouTube, and we're live about 30 minutes early here on Thursday. So, Merry Christmas. We're going early here. Previewing all of the Week 6 NFL action. You ready to go?
Yeah.
All right, man. If nobody saw yesterday, we had a fun show yesterday. I always say I love our Wednesdays because not only do we just get to ramble with no time limit, but we just talk about whatever comes up. Some of it comes up from you, listeners. Sometimes you get a text from a former Major League pitcher and you answer his question live on air. Sometimes you just go on and on about the Patriots and what's going on there and Brock Purdy and, the hot topics of the week. So we did that all yesterday. Go check that out if you haven't yet. But I enjoyed yesterday's show because we got to talk a lot.
Yeah. No, it was fun.
But this one, we got to keep it on point. We got to keep it tight because we got a whole bunch of games to preview. And it all starts with Thursday night football. Denver Broncos at the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs are favored by 10.5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot of points.
My initial thoughts on this one, the Chiefs play the Broncos 2 out of the next 3 weeks. The Broncos historically bad right now on defense. No matter which way you slice it, it is legendary. Like their defense is so bad, they would be all of their opponents are the best offense of all time by far. Right?
They've almost given up the same number of rushing yardage in 5 games that the 2000 Ravens gave up. All season. There's
a lot of good superlatives in there.
Yeah.
I like to look at how defenses do against 10-yard throws, 10-plus yard throws, how they fare down the field.
Yeah.
Do you know what the completion percentage is against the Denver defense on 10-plus yard throws down the field?
76.
Yes.
Excellent.
76? How'd you know? I tweeted it earlier. I don't know. You didn't see my Twitter?
No, I just guessed.
How'd you?
Do you know another?
Do you know how bad 76 is?
Yeah, it's awful. They are also the worst graded coverage unit in the NFL when no pressure is on the play, when they don't get pressure up front.
Yeah.
So if you don't get pressure, and they're not getting a ton of pressure, they have the worst coverage unit in the NFL.
So
with Patrick Surtain back there, by the way, like that's quite difficult to do.
So my prediction here. Look, there have been bad defenses other times in NFL history. The Lions were not this bad last year, but they had their own historical pace as far as giving up yards. The Miami Dolphins a couple years ago started 1-7 and were at this pretty bad level. And, you get better. Like those defenses don't stay historically bad, and they don't keep the pace, right? However, this feels like a spot with the Chiefs where it's not like the Chiefs are sitting there waxing teams like they usually do, and they're not putting up 40 points a game like they have at various points. This feels like a time where 3 weeks from now we're like, Mahomes has ridiculous numbers and the Chiefs are putting up 40 points, and it feels like a get right 3 weeks, 2 out of 3 weeks here for the Chiefs. Now, if the Broncos, can slow Kansas City down a little bit, maybe we could make these into pretty decent games. But right now it looks like Kansas City has a chance to light up Denver.
Yeah, I mean, this feels like when Kansas City played the Bears a couple of weeks ago, and they looked like they were going to hang 70 on Chicago, just like Miami had done a couple of hours before to Denver. I mean, that kind of feels like the yardstick, right? Miami put 70 on this team. That's probably the high water mark. Kansas City's not going to get there, but, 50 isn't unrealistic.
But it's the NFL. It's football. It's not always that clean. And look, Kansas City's offense has been, not as good as last year, for whatever that's worth, especially outside of the Bears game. So, I'm always hoping for competitive games because I'm rooting for the Shield, right? We're rooting for good ball here. But It looks like on paper the Chiefs, not only are they 10.5-point favorites, they're at home. They should put some points up against Denver.
Yeah, Denver has lost, the last 4 games for Denver. 35 points given up, 70 points given up, 28 points given up, 31 points given up.
Yeah.
That's quite a lot. And now you're facing the Chiefs.
Yes, that's correct. Do you have anything to add to this game? Are we going to have another one of these weeks? People thought we were mad at each other during the preview show last week because I kept asking you for, information.
I gave you several pieces of information. Not only, in fact, I even gave you the piece of information you were asking for.
You did. You nailed it, 76%. I was also asked this morning about the Russell Wilson-Sean Payton dynamic, and I want to reiterate. I think, look, Russ was not great last week against the Jets. We've got a few weeks of data now that says maybe quarterbacks that face the Jets aren't going to play very well. Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes,
sure.
They had their worst games. Outside of that, though, Russ has played pretty well. There's still these bouts where it seems like, he's just sitting there waiting to get sacked and everything. But overall, looks much better than last year.
Did you see the sideline encounter at the end of the game where he's come off the field and Sean Payton, because he took the sack and got fumbled, right? Like, bad Russ play to essentially end the game.
Yeah.
And he's coming off the field, and Sean Payton has some choice words for him on the sideline, I get the impression that Sean Payton, like Russell's corny thing, which I don't think is actually a shtick. I think that's him, right? Like everyone assumes this is an act of some kind. I honestly don't think it is. Did you hear the Marshawn Lynch description on Shannon Sharp's podcast of like the Super Bowl play, the don't run Marshawn at the one, interception, Malcolm Butler, yada, yada. Did you hear him describe that?
Russell?
Yeah.
No.
Marshawn describing the whole thing. So the thing that jumped out to me was, one of the most insane plays in NFL history. Everyone is expecting them to run Marshawn Lynch. They pass, intercepted at the one, game over. When they're going to the sideline, you know what Russ's reaction to that was?
No.
Kind of like, dang, I'll get it. We'll get him next time, I mean, look, that's I don't know what the correct reaction to that play is if you're the quarterback, but that's not it, right? And Marshawn wasn't too chuffed about that, So anyway, it described what else happened. But the point is, that is Russ. Like, just shucks, we'll get him next time, boys, And this whole, like Sean Payton saying earlier, stop kissing every baby like you're not running for office. But this is just him. So I kind of get the idea that the Russ cornball thing just pisses Sean Payton off. And like, the longer it goes, the more it's just going to annoy the living crap out of him.
It's definitely possible that that's the case. I mean, in football we try to do a lot of A/B analysis, right? Because as you say, the credit pie. We're always looking for the credit pie, right? And you have Pete Carroll with years of winning with Russ. Because when you say, hey, Sean Payton doesn't like the way Russ acts, I'm like, well, it's not like Russell Wilson has 10 years of terrible quarterback play on teams that don't win. He has 10 years of winning a lot of football games and playing good ball, right? That's the history of Russell Wilson. So it's not like it's not doable. But now you see the post-Russell Wilson era in Seattle, right? Here's your A/B analysis, oversimplify things. Pete Carroll's winning with Geno Smith back from the dead after 9 years just sitting on the bench. And Russell Wilson, multiple head coaches, including a Super Bowl winning head coach, and their teams are bad. Oversimplified, it looks like, good job, Pete Carroll. Mm-hmm. Was Pete Carroll always the guy to, pick up aw shucks guy? I mean, it looks pretty good for Pete in what he was able to do through the years.
I mean, I could buy Pete, getting on okay with an aw shucks kind of guy. I just feel like Sean Payton, he's not going to warm to that, The longer that goes on, the more Sean Payton is going to be irritated to hell by the aw shucks nature of Russ.
Yeah. Well, we got one more thing for everybody to check out in this game. It's from our friends over at Prize Picks. So you're playing daily fantasy. We have a PFF play of the week, which I don't have in front of me, but off the top of my head from yesterday, I remember we're talking more than a half touchdown for Rashee Rice and Javonte Williams, right? So we're going to combine Rashee Rice of the Chiefs, Javonte Williams of the Broncos, over a half touchdown, rushing or receiving. For
either one of those guys scores.
More than a half for those guys. And more than 1.25 sacks for
1.5.
1.25.
What?
1.25 sacks.
1.25?
Because the NFL does half sacks, so you can get 1.5 sacks here. So we're saying more than 1.25 for Chris Jones and George Karlaftis for the Chiefs going up against Russell Wilson. That's what we have as the PFF Prize Picks pick of the week. So how does Prize Picks work? You pick 2 to 5 players, and if they'll score more or less than their Prize Picks projection. So you can win up to 10 times your money. You're not competing against other people. It's just you against the projections. Prize Picks offers projections on any sport that you watch. This includes, remember this, NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, PGA, college football, men's college basketball, women's college basketball, soccer, WNBA, esports, NASCAR, tennis, MMA, boxing, disc golf, Eurobasketball, cricket, and more. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's very easy. You have safe and fast withdrawals, and it's currently operational in over 30 states plus Canada. So you can download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code PFF1. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks gives you $100. Deposit $50, PrizePicks gives you $50. Don't forget to enter promo code PFF1 at sign-up. That's PFF, the number 1. Do that at sign-up for an instant deposit match up to $100. All right, man, what's your game pick for this one? Kansas City by 10.5.
I think I have to go with the Chiefs. Like, I can't buy into the idea that Denver defense is slowing anybody down. And if they're going to give up 30 points to normal teams, it's going to be at least 40 to the Chiefs, at which point, even to cover this, they're going to need to put up 30 themselves, and that feels unlikely.
Yeah, this is one of those I have to go with what the data says on paper, which is Kansas City by a lot. Knowing Kansas City's history, the way Denver's defense is playing, I also acknowledge it's the NFL, right? It's the NFL, and things happen. And even though the Broncos look like they can't cover anybody right now, there is a chance in 2 out of the next 3 weeks they do play a competitive game against the Chiefs. It's division. It's, they'll turn a corner at some point. I just don't think it's yet right now. So give me the Chiefs to cover the 10.5. All right, as we've been doing on the preview show, we jump right now to the Discord game of the week. Discord game of the week, it looks like Saints at Texans?
Yep. Closest game right now. There's a few close games, actually, on the Discord picks channel. So head to the Discord. The link is in the description of the show, either on YouTube or in the audio version. Come and hang out. You can pick the games, and we'll talk about whichever the closest game is, according to the Discord picks, right up top in the show.
I just want to acknowledge, I know you go through the emails. I see the emails. Andrew Paul in the chat has been sending us hot takes since April, I believe. He's in the chat. He's yelling at us to read his hot takes. I think we need to do that for next Wednesday. There are multiple emails. It's like once a month, he's like, hey, guys, don't forget my hot takes. I don't think we've acknowledged them yet, and we need to do it.
Do you really want to accede to that kind of browbeating approach?
I think it's stick-to-itiveness that we should acknowledge. That I appreciate that dedication.
I mean,
Howie Roseman got his first job because he just kept peppering Joe Banner with emails and mails, actual mail.
Right.
And that's how you get your job. That's how you're the GM of the Eagles. We might need to, listen to Andrew. He's a dedicated emailer.
I don't know. I'm just not sure you want to set that kind of precedent.
Throwing it on your radar. Just throwing it on your radar.
If somebody just keeps badgering us over email, we'll eventually go, all right, fine.
All right, for the social media team here, Discord game of the week is the New Orleans Saints at the Houston Texans. Saints are favored by 1.5 in Houston. Saints coming off of a 34-0 shutout of the New England Patriots. Texans lost by 2 against the Falcons last week. The Texans, I think they were the game of the week last week as well, their Falcons game. So people are liking the Texans. They're a fun team and competitive. I think the C.J. Stroud in Houston's passing offense against the Saints defense, which looks overall pretty good this year. That's going to be a nice matchup.
Yeah, should be. It's a good test for this Houston offense that's working very well. C.J. Stroud is playing extremely well. PFF Bobby is dialing up some great plays. The combination of both of them, like San Francisco, appears to be more potent potentially than the sum of its parts. It's working really well. I looked, when was it, the other day, the top 3 PFF grades on 3rd and 4th down. It's Mahomes. I forget who the other quarterback was, but number 3 is C.J. Stroud. Stafford, yeah. Stafford, Mahomes, and C.J. Stroud.
I have another stat for you.
What's that?
That I put out there yesterday. We call it first read, which might be a little misleading, but basically the first look of the quarterback. The way we like to chart this is, where is the quarterback looking at the top of his drop, which side of the field, and does he make a throw to that side of the field? Right? It's not perfect, but it's informative. Is there something to the front side of the field? So there's slant flat, you throw slant or flat, it's first, right? There's something in that first read that you're throwing. Yards per attempt in the NFL. You got Brock Purdy at 10.2 yards per attempt on those first looks. Tua at 10 yards per attempt on first look. So you got Kyle Shanahan, Mike McDaniel. Sixth on the list is CJ Stroud at 8.7. So, 3 out of the top 6 are all guys coming from the Shanahan tree, including, Bobby as a play caller. Jared Goff's also third on the list, Ben Johnson. So it's like all the play callers and offensive coordinators that we compliment all the time with our eye test, we see it in this particular stat, which I think is informative, right? Wherever you're looking at the top of your drop, there's something there, right? And we're not separating full field from pre-snap reads or whatever. It's just it's actually an objective data point. You can figure out whatever you want from it. But I think that's informative as well. CJ Stroud running the offense really well, and their receivers and play caller giving them options.
One thing I think that needs to be talked about a bit more with this Houston team is how good the offensive line has been this season, despite not being 100% healthy. Now, I think you're seeing a couple of things. Number one, it's not the same offensive line as it was a year ago. Like, they've had some turnover just in terms of personnel. So it's not just the same group playing better. Number two, though, the incumbents, the holdovers from a year ago, are playing better, and in that scheme, the Shanahan scheme that helps offensive line. Like we've said this over and over and over again. That scheme isn't just quarterback friendly. It isn't just receiver friendly, run game friendly. It's offensive line friendly. So the PFF Bobby impact isn't just going to CJ Stroud. It's going to that offensive line as well. And through 5 games, the Houston Texans rank number 6 in pass blocking efficiency. They've given up 46 pressures, but they've also dropped back way more than most teams. But number 6, up from, where were they last year? 25th. Like, it's a giant leap forward in terms of blocking, which is part of this CJ Stroud playing really well dynamic, right? Like, his grade under pressure is still terrible. It's just that he's not under pressure that much.
Yeah, look, around draft time, because a lot of people are like, why didn't you guys have Stroud number 1? I mean, rankings aside. When I described Stroud at the time, I said, of all the quarterbacks, if I knew he was going to be in an offense where he was going to get protected and he would have a decent receiving group, I like Stroud. And we'll go back and listen to the tape. I don't know if I said I'll take Stroud over Bryce Young in that particular situation or whatever it might be, but I said that's where I would want Stroud, because I think he can deliver on time and accurately. He does that really well, and he's doing that extremely well. The surprise for me is what you said, is that the pass blocking, with all of their injuries, has been that good. And then you have a breakout season from Nico Collins, who looks just fantastic. I thought Robert Woods would be the guy that has that type of impact. Woods has been fine. He's a little banged up right now. But Woods, Tank Dell when he's not concussed, Nico Collins breaking out. You've been talking up these receivers all year. So it's a good group. Dalton Schultz as a complimentary tight end. It's a good group. They're playing good ball. And, like watching this Texans offense.
Yeah, I mean, look.
But it's going to be a challenge against the Saints.
Right. I didn't like Stroud coming out relative to most other people, but he was one of those players that I said right after the draft. You find our draft review shows, he couldn't have gone to a better team, right? It's the perfect fit for CJ Stroud, like the one offense where his strengths are going to get magnified, his weaknesses are going to get hidden a little bit. Right now, through the first 5 weeks of the season, he ranks 32nd out of 35 quarterbacks in terms of grade under pressure. His grade under pressure has been bad, which was the narrative coming out of college. 0 big-time throws, 4 turnover-worthy plays that have resulted in 0 turnovers, or 0 interceptions, rather. He's been bad under pressure, but they're not under pressure very much because the offense is functioning, and he's got somewhere to go on third downs, on first downs. Like, everything is working well, so his strengths are being magnified, and his strengths were always good. Like, the good things were always fantastic. Nobody ever doubted that. And if that's able to continue against the Saints, this is a game they can win. Now, the challenge is the Saints' DBs are physical, aggressive. They can test passes. They're going to make the picture more muddy for CJ Stroud, you would think, than most teams have been able to do. And that potentially starts to push him towards the areas where he doesn't necessarily excel.
Completely agree. I think it's maybe the biggest challenge of Stroud's career so far. Saints are allowing only 37% of their 10-yard throws to be completed. So that's about half what the Broncos are allowing. 30, as for perspective, that's second best in the league. So it's going to be a bit more of a challenge. Derek Carr, 64 PFF grade right now. Better last week, had his best game as a Saint last week. They had some big plays down the field. We'll see if they can continue that. They should have some opportunities again against Houston here. So where are you going for the Discord game of the week here? Saints favored by 1.5 in Houston.
I think I'm going to lean towards the Saints.
Yeah, I'm going to go Saints again as well. I like the Texans. They're fine. But
they're fine.
Saints are up to 3-2 now. They had a disappointing loss 2 weeks ago against the Bucs, but they've been very competitive. And again, I keep thinking that they're close. I know they scored 34 last week. A lot of that was because of incompetent offense from New England, but Saints are close, even offensively here.
Mm-hmm.
I lost my place over here.
Nice.
So I'm going Seattle and the Bengals as the game of the week, the best game of the week. Is that fair?
Sure.
What you look at there? But before we get to that, we're going to tell you about Fabric. As a parent, you've had to learn so many new skills to provide for your family. How to do copious amounts of laundry, meal plan for even the pickiest eater, and now how to protect your family's financial future. Fabric by Gerber Life provides an easy one-stop shop for your family's financial needs, offering high-quality term life insurance policies, plus other financial solutions in one easy online hub. Fabric was designed by parents for parents to help you get a high-quality, surprisingly affordable term life insurance policy in less than 10 minutes. Fabric has flexible policies that fit your family and your budget, like $1 million in coverage for less than $1 a day. Get your personalized quote in just minutes and then apply when it's convenient for you. It's all online and on your schedule. You can go from start to covered in less than 10 minutes with no health exam required. So join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to protect their family. Apply today in just minutes at meetfabric.com/PFFNFL. That's meetfabric.com/PFFNFL. MEET fabric.com/PFFNFL. Policies issued by Western Southern Life Insurance Company, not available in certain states. Prices subject to underwriting and health questions. All right, Seattle Seahawks coming to town, taking on the Bengals. Bengals favored by 3 here. The 3-1 Seahawks against the 2-3 Bengals. I think the big question here is, was last week the turning point where we're going to see the Cincinnati Bengals team, particularly on offense, that they were the last couple seasons?
Yeah, I mean, really, just specifically Burrow. His leg looked better. He's moving differently. He's not protecting himself the way he was when he first came back. He's practicing without a sleeve on the leg. That calf looks pretty much back to normal. I'm sure he's not 100% yet, but the difference between him against Arizona and him in the previous couple of games was really stark. He was doing different things and reacting in a different way and being more aggressive. And you put all those things together, and that's an offense that functions. That's an offense that actually works and can be what they were previously, can get the ball and absolutely dominate. I mean, Jamar Chase also then sets, not set a record, but joined a handful of players that have had, 15 targets and 3 touchdowns and stuff. They just made the game, let's go through Jamar Chase, let's throw the ball to our best player as many times as possible, and that still works.
It's a lot of fun matchups in this one. So that means the way they're using Jamar Chase in Cincinnati, all over the formation, outside, inside in trips, he's going to see the great Devin Witherspoon, right? The last time we saw the Seattle Seahawks play was Monday Night Football. They're coming off a bye. Monday Night Football, they sacked Daniel Jones 10 times, Paris Campbell 1 time, and Devin Witherspoon he had the pick 6, right? It was pick 6. And Witherspoon's just making a name for himself. He's got a sack in there. He's flying around the field. All the reasons why we love Devin Witherspoon during the draft. It was like we saw it all in one Monday night game. That dude just is fun to watch, man, and really good. So we'll see some Witherspoon, Jamar Chase matchups, which will be great.
Yep.
We'll see if Charles Cross is back at left tackle for Seattle. But that's, the one guy that's playing really well on defense is the Bengals edge rusher, Trey Hendrickson. Pushing a 90 grade right now. Hendrickson off to the best start of his career. Sack totals, pressures, the whole thing. So there's some great matchups in this one. But when we saw Seattle, I think it's the last 2 weeks now, they beat up on the Panthers offensive line and they beat up on the Giants offensive line.
Yeah.
And the Bengals are actually better than both of those teams on the offensive line, but not by, whatever. They're in the same tier, even though the Giants are creating a tier of their own.
Yeah, I don't think they're in the same tier.
They're in the bottom third of the league.
The Bengals
Giants are in a special tier, though.
The Bengals have a reasonably poor offensive line. Those other two might have the two worst offensive lines in the NFL that are catastrophically non-functional. Like, that's a different tier.
My point in all of this is, where's Seattle's pass rush grade? Like, Seattle's pass rush grade is 5th right now. What I want to know, how much of that is a function of, the other teams that are up there all played the Giants pretty much.
Yeah.
How much of that is playing the Giants? How much, literally, of the top 5, 3 of them played the Giants? Actually, the top 6. 4 out of the top 6 pass rush grades all played against the Giants. So every year in Seattle, I'm looking at their pass rush and thinking, okay, when does Pete Carroll get this thing back? They have not had a really good pass rush in 6, 7, 8 years.
Yeah.
And so are they back? Are they there? Or did they just play the Panthers and the Giants, and that helps things?
Yeah, it's such an interesting element of that defense, right? The Legion of Boom, we always think about that as just the guys in coverage. The Cam Chancellor, Earl Thomas, Richard Sherman, Bobby Wagner even, like the back 7. But that front 4 was nasty as well. Like, the best front 4 that they had there, and then it just slowly got chipped away at, and they never really restocked properly or never really managed to replace those. And they tried. They've drafted pretty high ranked, high positioned edge rushers, and they just haven't worked out. So, like, it is a big part of this defense that they're trying to get this done without the sort of foundation piece that everyone's looking for.
They are playing well over there, though. So you're seeing flashes from Boye Mafe and Mario Edwards playing well. Jaron Reed, linebacker Jordan Brooks is questionable, but he's playing the best of his career. Bobby Wagner still sitting there as the highest graded Seahawk because that dude just doesn't get old. He still graded well last year with the Rams, even though they didn't do much as a defense. Hoping to get Jamal Adams back after the concussion. He only played, 2 snaps the other day? What was the actual number?
I don't know, but it wasn't much.
So there's Seattle's defense is fun and ascending, but again, I want to see more. I want to see that consistency from the defensive line. On paper, it looks like, hey, they might be able to cause some problems for Burrow and the offensive line.
He played a whole 9 snaps.
It was 9, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I wasn't counting. I just knew I tuned into the game, and a little bit after the game, he came out.
Awful. Like that, he was the poster child for, like, bad tackling technique.
Yeah.
Like, head towards the ground, launch yourself at a guy's knees, and sometimes the knee is going to crack you in the head, and that's a concussion.
It was not great.
Like, there's a reason, even NFL tackling, that whole heads up, blah, 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 let alone rugby tackling. I mean, it was bad technique, and it's a risk to everybody when you do that.
Anything else you're looking for matchup-wise? I think, anytime you're trying to match up with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, going to put some pressure on the Bengals corners who have been, a little up and down. Chidobe Awuzie and Cam Taylor-Britt. Taylor Britt had a pick 6 the other day, which we described on the review podcast, was kind of thrown right to him. Model guy DJ Turner has been balling out when they get him out there. So I wouldn't mind a little Turner versus Tyler Lockett matchup. Could be a nice one. But that's just another matchup to watch here. Geno Smith playing pretty well. Seahawks have a chance to go to 4-1 here. Remember, they kind of laid an egg week 1. Was it week 1 against the Rams? But since that time, playing much better, closer to expectations. So.
Yeah, against some pretty terrible teams.
Yeah.
Like it's an interesting game for Seattle because it's a good barometer of where they are, which I don't think the last couple of games were. So for that reason alone, I think it's going to be a good one to watch.
I believe this would be the first time the Seahawks have seen Jamar Chase. You're running out of
teams that are surprised by him.
Yeah, surprised by Jamar Chase's speed getting at teams.
Yeah, that's true.
Because remember, the old theory, the first time you see Jamar Chase, you're just like, ooh, there he goes. There's a slant for 80 yards. Watch out. All right, where are you going with this one? Bengals are favored by 3.
Yeah, that is kind of interesting given what they've done so far this year. I guess people are buying into Joe Burrow being back. At home, all right, let's give credit to the Bengals. Let's say Joe Burrow is back and they cover 3 just.
I'm torn on it. I think I'll lean Bengals, but even in that Arizona game, they're kind of a not fluky pick 6, but the pick 6 is what really led to turn that one into a blowout, which was a bit of a fluky play. But at the same time, even Burrow this week at practice, I don't know if you saw, they're doing drills that he hasn't done before. Like, he's moving better. So if we're saying Burrow's back, Chase looks dynamic. T. Higgins has been banged up. You're not getting that same support, but I think that foundation is getting stronger for the Bengals. I'll take them covering the 3. Mm-hmm. All right, we'll go game by game, rest of the way through the schedule here. Starting back we're in London again? It's not in another city?
We're in London. I think it's always in London when it's in England.
I don't know. They don't throw games into Leeds or anything like that.
Do you even know another English city?
Leeds.
Leeds
Yeah.
is not the one I would have expected you to pick.
Yeah, I know some other ones.
Yeah.
Across the pond here, Ravens at the Titans. Ravens favored by 4. I don't want to pick this game because my Titans home road
Screws things up.
it's all
They're in
screwed
England.
up. Titans are technically the home team, but we know they're not in Nashville. They're going to be in London. So I don't even want to make a pick here.
Okay.
I don't know what to do with this. Ravens coming off a disappointing 3-2, or loss to move to 3-2. Titans are 2-3 here. 2-0 at home, 0-3 on the road.
Yes.
And this is one of their home games.
In London.
I think it's still a road game, is the deal.
Okay.
It's too far.
All right.
Right after my PSA yesterday, that power rankings are not standings. Pro Football Talk did it. He did it, like Florio. Put out his power rankings. That as someone yelled at me in my mentions because I said they were literally the standings. He said it's not the standings because Florio didn't account for tiebreakers apparently, but he listed his power rankings by record. So the Ravens are like one drop away from being third in his power rankings. Now they're like 8th. So just do better, Mike.
Do better.
We'll have you on the show. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about your power. We should invite Mike to discuss his power rankings.
No way you would go on this show.
On the show. No, Mike doesn't
Not
like
a
us
chance.
at all. Chris Sims like us. We're friends with Sims, though. All right, Ravens by 4. I guess my point is people sour at the 3-2 Ravens. They've lost an overtime game against the Colts. A couple plays here and there. Weird one against Pittsburgh. You got to blame Baltimore. It's their fault for doing it.
Yeah.
But are they the best 3-2 team in the league right now? Yeah.
I mean, yeah, like they should have won that game. There's no question about it. And it was another one of those games where it was like a Trevor Lawrence game where Lamar Jackson, outside of, one play that was bad, but other than that, he was getting let down by his receivers left, right, and center.
Now, that's part of the Ravens, right? I mean, that's you can't just say, oh, the Ravens they got unlucky. Like, it's their fault.
Yeah,
It's those receivers.
Sure, but it's also not. It's not necessarily a repeatable thing. Like, this was the thing with Trevor Lawrence. Like, he doesn't have a bunch of terrible receivers just because they've screwed him in the last couple of weeks. They're good players. They haven't come up with the plays they needed to come up with. Now, Baltimore, it's a little bit more of a question mark because they're not as proven or obviously good as Jacksonville's receivers. It's more of an open issue. Maybe they are going to do this consistently all the way through the season. But I think theoretically they will make those plays. Like, Zay Flowers is not going to drop multiple wide open passes or adjust badly to a ball taken in the wind and just fall over rather than stand there and catch it. These are not things that are going to happen every single week. And if they don't, if Lamar keeps making those plays, they'll have more success because of that.
Lamar Jackson still doing a good job running the ball, creating value on the ground. Offensive line has been banged up. It looks like Morgan Moses is going to come back. There was a scare a couple weeks ago that he could be out for the season. That's always helpful if he can be back. I think an underrated part too is what their linebackers are doing. Roquan Smith. Remember last year the Ravens trade for him, and he looks like a completely different player than what he was in Chicago. He's continued that 91 grade for Roquan Smith, flying around making plays. It's going to be Roquan and Patrick Queen. Can they slow down Derrick Henry? And the Titans, they're an interesting team because I think they're close. I thought they lost last week, but feeding DeAndre Hopkins, I think is the way to go. I feel like they could continue to do that, get the ball to DeAndre Hopkins, run when you need to run, and they're going to be a tough, competitive team. You do have to figure out a complementary weapon, but DeAndre Hopkins against Marlon Humphrey and Brandon Stevens this week, they should have the advantage to be able to get Hopkins another 13 to 15 targets, and that's how you're going to put points up on the board, I think, if you're Tennessee.
Yeah, I mean, it basically is their offense at the moment. The Derrick Henry, it's going to be interesting to see if they can run the ball the way they have in the last couple of weeks. Actually get some better success on the ground. They're still doing that split backfield thing with Derrick Henry, with Tajee Spears. They're using Spears creatively in the run game.
I like some of the creativity that they've had using Henry, using Spears. It's been solid the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I like getting Spears involved in the offense. I think he's too talented to ignore or to just not have out there. And I even like the idea that you're mixing it up, not having just a running back and then a receiving back, a change of pace guy like Jahmyr Gibbs. But I do worry about just limiting the workload of Derrick Henry. I think he's maybe the only running back out there who needs that cliched, needs the touches, the volume is actually an important element to Derrick Henry's game. And if you can't give him the volume because you're siphoning off some of those touches for Tajee Spears, I just wonder if that's a net win, even if it's working for Spears.
All right, man. Do you factor in the home and away here? Is that part of your analysis?
No. They're both away teams as far as I'm
concerned. They're both away teams.
Yeah.
So it's the Ravens by 4 against the Titans. Well, the Ravens, who looked, they probably should have beaten the Steelers by a touchdown or more.
Yes.
If they just caught a couple passes. It's their fault that they dropped them. But they're, over time, you're probably not going to drop 7 passes and fall down on an 8th every single week. So I'm kind of liking the Ravens here, even by 4, 9:30 a.m.
9:30 a.m.
Am I taking all the favorites so far? Looks like it.
I'm going to go with Tennessee. I have no good reason for it, but I'm going with the Titans.
Other than they're listed as the home team.
Yeah.
That might be the...
But having said that, I consider them an away team, so it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. All right, man. Minnesota Vikings at the Chicago Bears, getting into the 1 o'clock games here on Sunday. Minnesota is favored by 2.5 at Chicago. I think predicting this game is going to be a challenge because of what we saw there's a similar pattern to what we saw last year with the Bears, where the beginning of the season looked so bad and just incompetent offensively. I know they went 2-1 to start the season, but there was points where Fields had more scrambles than completions. Some stupid stats, right? Early in the year last year. But then a switch flipped, and it was like running Fields showed up, and then he started hitting more throws, and I was like, wow, the Bears, they're at least going to be competitive every week. They wouldn't win games, but they could drop 30 at any time and be really competitive. And I feel like we're at that point right now. Fields is coming off back-to-back games. One was against the Broncos, right? Tore apart the Broncos, but he also tore up Washington. Now, they didn't cover very well at all. There was a lot of open throws there too, but credit Chicago, man. They look much better.
They did,
offensively these last couple
And
weeks.
look, this was right after. Remember, Fields came out and said that crazy sort of spiel about it's coaching. I'm not playing my game. I'm too laden down with thinking. I'm just not playing instinctively.
It just took a week, but then that kind of showed up.
No, yeah, but since that point, he basically has played more. He's been more decisive, and that's a thing, right? Like one of the many criticisms about this offense earlier in the season is he wasn't being decisive. He wasn't making decisions. He was standing back in the pocket, paralyzed by whatever indecision it was that was affecting him, and he couldn't throw the ball at open receivers. Now, at least that's changed. Now, you can argue that, hey, against any half-competent defense, and, this is the Vikings, so that might not be one, they're not going to be wide open, right? And does that change things? Like, what if the guy isn't open every single play? Are you now going back to not being able to make plays? But against Denver, against Washington, he had wide open receivers basically the whole time, and he was putting the ball in the air.
The first read, first look, whatever you want to call it, stat.
Yep.
4th, Justin Fields in yards per attempt.
Yeah, and look,
4th at 9.1 yards per attempt.
That is the story of Justin Fields in his NFL career. If you look at, even you can do it, you can get to that kind of same point in a variety of different ways, right? One of them, if you look at his grade in the first quarter versus other quarters of the game since he's come into the NFL, like his first quarter grade is 30 points higher than the other. Like when the script, the preparation, like everything he's been doing before the week, when he goes in there and just like does what he's being told to do, it's fine. It works. And then you reach a point in the game where you now need to like adjust to what's happening. Like the game flow takes you in a different direction, or the performance of the defense is sending you in a different direction. And that's when Justin Fields seems to break down and run out of ideas or the ability to react and change his game. Like that part of Fields, just doing the sort of the served up part has actually always been fine. It's everything else.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this matchup too, because you also we mentioned the Vikings blitz every single week. I know there's definitely some things we have to mention every single week, because when you're going up against the Vikings, you gotta have answers against the blitz, right? They're gonna come after you, and that's also been hit or miss in Fields' career, right? We've got extra blitzers, we've got extra rushers.
Well, he's a classic
handling pressure, throwing hot, all of those things. Like, you got to have all your answers. Do the Bears have those answers against this Vikings defense?
He's the classic, dangerous quarterback to blitz. Generally, it might be worth doing in the overall sense, but it's probably going to come at a cost somewhere, because he's too athletic. He's got an arm. He can punish you with a huge play if you get it wrong, right? And this is the thing with blitzing, is it's risky. And if you do get it wrong, there's a huge play to be had. But where is are you going to get away with it, right? If you blitz him 20 times in the game, is he going to find one of those big plays? And is that worth it? 19 good plays versus one big one? Is he going to find 2 of them? And then you're like, uh-oh, this is getting away from us. That's, I think, the dynamic of blitzing Fields. It probably is the right call relative to, Patrick Mahomes, et cetera. But it's risky as hell, and if it goes against you, that's the game, basically.
Most quarterbacks, though, you have to beat the blitz with your mind, right? Having hot reads, throwing behind it, and just making good decision after good decision over and over again. You're describing Fields like, hey, if you blow a gap or something like that, he's going to run around you. And there's certainly
it's both, right? He's
certainly
he's one of the unusual quarterbacks that has the capacity to beat you on both, or either.
Yeah, so I'm interested to see that. I don't think the Vikings are going to dial it back at all, because they rarely do. They dialed it back a touch against Mahomes last week. On the other side, we got Justin Jefferson going on IR for the Vikings. Mm-hmm. They're sitting here at 1-4.
So just to put some context to that, against the blitz since the start of 2022, in rushing terms, Justin Fields has a 91.4 grade and is averaging 6.2 yards per attempt, has a bunch of broken tackles, 22 first downs from 46. It's dangerous.
Yeah.
You got to get it right if you're going to blitz him.
But I assume he's been sacked a ton in there, too.
He has been sacked a bunch.
If you want to pull that up. I'll talk Minnesota a little bit while you're getting that ready.
27 times. So he's basically either getting sacked or hurting you on the ground for a big play. Nothing in between.
Minnesota's going to take it. They're going after him. Justin Jefferson to IR. Mm-hmm. And so Minnesota, there's a lot of talk about, okay, this is when Kirk Cousins can get traded to a contender. Is Justin Jefferson going to come back to a 2-6, 2-7 team and not want to play for the rest of the year? Should Minnesota just completely blow it up and say, okay, this is the read? If you are an analytics forward-looking GM, you just say, we'll punt on this season. We gave it a go. We'll punt on this season. Maybe we get a top 5 pick and we're in the Drake May, Caleb Williams conversation. Some interesting times here in Minnesota. But they're also they're not as bad as a 1-4 team. They're just a similar team as last year that's had some stuff go the other way.
They weren't, but they might be now.
They might be now. I mean, Justin Jefferson, probably the most valuable non-quarterback in the NFL. He's there.
Yeah, he's at least in the argument.
He's top 3. He's
right.
Top 5 most value. You got Tyreek Hill. I think A.J. Brown. I think Aaron Donald, Chris Jones. A couple of the other edges might be in that conversation, but he's up there.
Yeah,
top 5 most valuable non-quarterback. So that's going to probably make this team worse.
Sure. And now you're looking at this receiving core from Minnesota, and it's like rookie Jordan Addison may end up being the most targeted receiver for them. If it's not him, it's probably TJ Hawkinson, a tight end. KJ Osborne now has to be like a number 2/number 1 in that offense. I don't know that he's shown the ability to do that. The dump off options, we talked about, Alexander Madison dropping an easy touchdown last week. This goes from being an amazing looking receiving core with the best receiver in the game to, this is kind of weak. And when you add that to everything else that's weak, that's not great.
By the way, with our picks, I've got 40. I got to get our official records here. I've got 40 wins this year. I've just counted our wins. Uh-huh. I've got 40. You have 34.
Okay.
so
Are you keeping track of, like the 2000 Ravens and the Denver Broncos this year? Like how many weeks is it going to take you to get more wins than you had all of last year?
I'm probably close.
Yeah.
We should pull that up pretty soon here, because I'm thinking pick-wise in this game, I'm leaning Chicago. I'm buying into the last 2 weeks. They're coming off their first win. Their second half collapse against the Broncos away from having 2 wins.
Yeah.
Being far more competitive. They're underdogs at home here. And I think Fields is starting to play the way we thought he would before the year. Not necessarily, 8 touchdowns, no picks, not that, but just, hey, he's dangerous now after looking horrible for 3 weeks. So I'll take the Bears as 2.5-point underdogs here against the Vikings.
Yeah, I'm not even necessarily buying into the Fields thing. It's more we saw that he can work against terrible defenses, and this looks like another terrible defense in addition to an offense whose best weapon just went on IR. So it's difficult to see the Vikings putting up that much of a threat. It's really, can Chicago back that up? And I think they could probably do what they did last week. So yeah, I'm going to go with the Bears as well.
Is it even viable to have Kirk Cousins traded?
Not really. We talked about this with Trev a little bit. Like there's a few problems. Number one, he has a no trade clause, so he has to buy into whatever team is trading for him.
Right.
Number two, how many of those teams are there? Because they're going to have to pay him what he's going to get in the open market, maybe plus some, in order to acquire him. So how many teams?
Not necessarily. You're paying the rest of this year's salary.
Right, but part of him buying into it and saying, yeah, I'll waive my no trade clause to uproot myself from my nice mansion here and go to wherever the hell you're playing is presumably going to include and the next $200 million that's going to come with that in the offseason, right?
Maybe.
So this is what I'm saying. I think it very quickly narrows down to 1-2 options, like who are even going to be vaguely, because you have to be probably good enough this year that you can convince not just yourself but Cousins that if he steps onto this team, it's a playoff team, right? Number two, it's got to be a team who is interested in him beyond this year and is willing to pay $200 million for that. And that, how many of those are there? One? Atlanta?
On top of, I think the only example I can think of where a QB was traded and then just, I guess Josh Dobbs did it this year, but Sam Bradford.
Right. He's got to come in and start right away and be good.
You have to come in. So when Sam Bradford was traded by the Vikings, he comes in, sits out a week, he missed week 1. Was it Sean Hill started for him? But then week 2,
right.
Sam Bradford, with 2 weeks in the system, comes in, balls out. But he comes in with 2 weeks in the system. That's rare. Baker Mayfield got on the plane, got the playbook, and, ran plays the next day. It's not impossible. But you're also not talking about just filling in as a starter.
Bill Belichick, Hail Mary, New England.
Oh, geez. It's funny because they're in all of these conversations now. They're in all the QB conversations that the Jets have always been in and the Falcons are in, and all of a sudden New England's in those as well.
I don't even know if that, does that qualify? Can you convince yourself and Cousins that if Cousins steps onto that team, New England, they're good?
No.
Right. So this is what I'm saying. I don't know that there's one of those teams out there where the conversation even makes sense.
No, it probably doesn't. All right, we'll get on to more games. But first, we're brought to you today by Manscaped, who's taken a step up from Balloween to bring your face the cleanest shave it's ever seen. So this season, no need to toil and trouble. Manscaped's all-new Handyman is the best way to get rid of that stubble. Featuring a compact design and next-gen skin-safe technology, the Handyman was designed to give you the smooth finish without the mess of a traditional shave. Get the sweetest treat this Halloween by going to manscapes.com and use code PFF for 20% off plus free shipping. I don't know if anybody still shaves old school style. I don't know if people do. But if you do, it's probably time to move on and grab a Handyman. You looked like you had an answer.
Well,
you don't shave.
I don't shave, so.
It may be spooky season, but you don't want to scare people with a scraggly beard. Give them something to look at with Manscaped's Handyman. So this is what I'm saying. If you're an old school shaver, it's Handyman time for you. If you're tired of those bad razors, making your neck look like a scary movie, well, with the Handyman skin-safe technology, it helps you reduce the nicks and cuts. You can finally feel confident when going for that close shave. For wet or dry use, feel free to bring this anywhere and everywhere. The compact design and airplane friendliness make this the perfect travel tool on the go. And you'll be able to shave up to 3 days growth without the mess of the wet shave. That's just priceless. And for the wolfmen with a little more scruff like Sam, Manscaped's Beard Hedger Pro Kit is everything you need to tame your mane. This cordless trimmer has a rotary wheel that gives you 20 hair cutting lengths, all with one guard. So no more drawers full of extra add-ons collecting cobwebs. That's right. Halloween costumes may take some effort, but beard grooming doesn't need to. So go check the beard hedger out. It's a high-tech piece of art in a travel-size package with a long-lasting battery, universal charging, and a strong motor. There's no trick with this treat. Manscaped has you covered. So get 20% off plus free shipping with the code PFF at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with manscaped.com. Use the code PFF. For a look as sweet as candy, get yourself the handyman from Manscaped. Quick baseball story here for you related to shaving. I've maybe told this on the podcast before, but look, we've done thousands of podcasts. Somebody forgot it. In the minor leagues, you need to have a neatly trimmed
I'm aware. That's
right?
why.
Remember, so there was one time we're out there stretching, and some guy let it grow a little too long. Let's get the beard, almost a beard going. And one of the coaches came up to him, and this guy's like 35 at the time. And a coach came up, he's like, "Gotta go shave. We got sponsors in town. We don't want the giant sponsors to see anybody, with a beard." So he goes into the clubhouse and starts like just hacking up his face. He's getting the hair off, but he's just dry shaven and just like hacking it up. So he came out like bleeding everywhere, basically to make a point, like, is this better? Is this better for the sponsors? You wanted no hair? Well, look at me right now. I'm all cut up. And if he had the handyman, what I'm saying, he could, he could do it real quick without killing himself.
It's one of the
It's a dumb rule.
Stupidest rules I've come across in any sport ever. The concept that like you can make yourself look like an absolute jackass as long as it's only from the lip upwards.
That's right.
And everything else has to be shaved because that would look silly. A beard would look ridiculous.
Bleeding profusely, but as long as there's no hair around the blood, it's
just
all
such
legal.
a bizarre thing to be concerned about.
Just saying, the handyman would have been handy at that time for my friend Matt. All right, San Francisco 49ers at the Cleveland Browns. 49ers favored by 7. Powerhouse 49ers, number 1 in everybody's power rankings. And they're favored by 7 against the Browns. Deshaun Watson has not been practicing. He has bruising around the rotator cuff. Not sure I've heard that one before.
He's been medically cleared.
What's going on there?
So Stefanski has been kind of dancing on this semantics pinhead of, well, there's a difference between being medically cleared and being able to actually do your job, as a quarterback. Like, well, not a big one. I mean, theoretically, that's actually the line, right? Is once you're medically cleared, you can go out there and do your job. I mean, how bad must he be playing whilst medically cleared for them to be going, no, we're still going to start PJ?
I mean, they're not trying to start PJ Walker or DTR over him.
But that's my point. Like, how bad must he be throwing the ball medically cleared that they're still going, PJ's better right now?
Yeah, but is it a Watson thing? Is it a pain management thing? Is he just in a ton of pain but still medically cleared? Can those things can coexist, right?
Sure.
Like
usually those are,
because medically cleared is like, hey, you won't damage it anymore. It's a pain tolerance thing.
Usually when that happens, the quarterback's out there playing, and it's generally expected that he's not going to be catastrophic.
If you want to remain consistent, though, back in 2021, Baker had the left shoulder deal. And you said he should sit out. He's in a contract year. He should sit out.
Right. Watson's not in a contract year. In fact, he already has $230 million guaranteed contract.
Oh, so you should go out there and play.
Well, I mean, look, the reason for Baker not doing that is exactly the way it unfolded, which was you might be willing to lay your health on the line for the team, but they're very unlikely to reciprocate. And in fact, they were like, you know what? Actually, we don't think Baker's the guy. Look how badly he played this year. Like, yeah, with a torn shoulder that he made worse trying to help out the team. So he hadn't got his money yet. And he basically got that contract taken away from him because he went out there and gritted through an injury that he should have shut down from. Watson has got the biggest guaranteed contract in NFL history, and so that's not a concern anymore. Like, if he has a career-ending injury off the back of this, he still has $230 million guaranteed sitting there. So get out there. You've been medically cleared. Strap it up.
We got some conspiracy theories in the chat. Internal suspension. There's stuff going on. I mean, it's Watson, right? Those rumors are swirling. I think nothing against PJ Walker or DTR. Takes a little bit of the luster off this matchup because the Browns are coming off a bye. That's the other part of this, by the way. Watson not practicing, coming off a bye. Like, something's going on here.
Yeah, having been medically cleared for a while.
Yeah, something's happening. But it takes a little bit of the luster off this game, not because Watson's been playing great, but it was the last time we saw him, looked much better. And the Browns' defense has been outstanding. Watson, so he missed week 4. What week are we in? He missed week 4. He's played 3 games, Watson. His third game was good. Missed week 4, by week 5, and he's still out right now. But the Browns' defense has been outstanding. I know they gave up a little bit against the Ravens, had a couple short fields in there and everything, but they're still by far number 1 in success rate allowed by offenses. It's not even close. They're the best defense there. Lowest percentage of 10-plus yard throws. So we got strength against strength here because Purdy's completing like 75% of his 10-plus yard throws, and the Browns are allowing only 36%. That's lowest in the NFL. Something has to give here in Cleveland against MVP candidate Brock Purdy.
Yeah. It does. I mean, the 49ers look phenomenal right now. Like, this will be a good test for how unstoppable this offense is. It is dialing up. It has answers for everything. It's dialing up, untouched, unbroken plays, left, right, and center. Brock Purdy has just this insane record in terms of the volume of plays he's looking at there that don't have perfect coverage, that have a breakdown somewhere, right? Somebody's getting beat. But now you're going up against what looks like the best defense in the NFL. Can they make a dent against it? Because if they can't, nobody's stopping this offense. But if they can slow it down, now you might start to see what Brock Purdy does bring to the table. And I'm not saying it isn't anything, right? But we get a better answer because now he has to do it once that offensive scheme runs out of answers. So honestly, that's the matchup here. Forget Deshaun Watson, the Cleveland offense, blah, blah, blah. That's probably going to be a struggle regardless, but I'm really fascinated to see, can this defense make an impact on what is currently a runaway freight train?
I'll repackage the earlier stat. Brock Purdy, 10.2 yards per attempt on first reads, looks. Basically, wherever he's looking at the top of his drop, when he throws to that same side of the field, or if it's the middle of the field, he throws that way. 10.2 yards per attempt. That's number 1 in the NFL. It's Kyle Shanahan and his entire tree that are up among the leaders. I also looked it up since 2020. You know who's number 1 in that stat since 2020? Jimmy Garoppolo, right? So again, just adding to this Brock Purdy conversation, not taking away from anything that he's doing. Is he elevating the previous Shanahan offense? Absolutely. But he's elevating it from a baseline that's already extremely, extremely high. And that's what makes the Niners so dangerous right now with all those weapons and then Brock Purdy playing within that system at a very high level.
I'm going to repackage the analysis from the Micah Parsons thing last week. But remember, you had Micah Parsons going up against Trent Williams, right? On the one hand, from a viewer's point of view, like matchup, it's an amazing matchup to watch. 2 of the best players at their respective positions going one-on-one. On the other hand, from a defensive, like play calling, coaching perspective, why would you let that happen when you can move your amazing Defensive Player of the Year candidate to some other player and beat up on him all day? Myles Garrett generally plays over the left tackle. Remember, there was a lot made earlier this season of they're moving him around, they're trying to get him better looks. He's been doing that crossover thing pre-snap, blah, blah, blah. When you look at how often that's happened, it's actually a pretty small number, and it's been getting smaller as the weeks go on. It's like they sort of showed it. Hey, don't think you can look at Myles Garrett just being against your left tackle every play. He's going to move around. And then they just put him back at left tackle. It's like, he's winning every time anyway. What the hell? I'd get back to using that as much as you can. Flip him sides, let him line up in the middle, let him rush in the B gaps. I just wouldn't put him one-on-one against Trent Williams every play because it's probably going to dull his effectiveness.
As a viewer, I want to see Myles Garrett versus Trent Williams as often as possible.
But I suspect
it'll Browns,
go the same as last week, right?
I would take my guy, Obo Okoronkwo, sacrifice him to Trent Williams. Sacrifice Obo to Trent, right? Yeah. You're going to rush 30 times. You might win one. But Myles Garrett's going to move around. Zadarius Smith's going to move around. We got to create some kind of havoc here.
Right.
7-point spread here. The matchup of the Niners offense versus the Browns defense looks awesome and fun. On the other side, though, if the Browns are starting P.J. Walker or DTR, I mean, 7 doesn't feel like enough. And I know P.J. Walker had spurts of incredible play last year. You just never know where that's going to come from. I'm not seeing it happening here. I'll take the Niners to cover the 7.
Yeah, I'm kind of assuming they are not starting Deshaun Watson at this point, I think, because of whatever the hell's happening there, at which point I don't see a Browns team being able to keep within 7.
If they were starting Watson, would you change your pick there? I'll allow it.
Yes, I think I would.
Okay.
Just
Yeah,
'cause
seven's a lot.
I think their defense will actually blunt the 49ers a bit.
We could let's talk on Sunday. We should be able to change our picks here because I assume the spread would be closer to 4 or 5.
Without?
Without, but it's not without because the line's going to move, right? I don't think it's 7 with Watson, I would say.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a sort of hedging line at the moment or if it's a line assuming.
I'll tell you what, if you told me I don't care where the game is, it's in Cleveland, but if you told me P.J. Walker's starting against this Niners team, I would expect double digits.
Yeah, but it's moved already like a couple of points from when it showed up. So I think they're already kind of factoring in it's probably not Watson. Yeah, maybe not. I don't know.
All right, well, we'll keep an eye on that for everybody. Indianapolis Colts at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jags favored by 4 against the Colts, who have not won in Jacksonville since the late 90s, seemingly. And this is the first time we'll have a rematch in the 2023 NFL season.
Really?
The first rematch of the season.
Of the season.
It's a young – I don't like this, Sam. I don't like when two division teams –
they usually do the other way, right? It's all at the end.
They usually play division games at the end. Jacksonville does play the Titans the last week of the season, but it's weird, yeah. Jags will have their division games all done by week 12 other than one game against the Titans. So the Jags, week 1, they beat the Colts 31-21. It was Anthony Richardson's debut. Is that the game he got banged up? Yeah, he got banged.
He got banged up in basically all the games.
He did, in all of them. But yeah, Jags won pretty handily in week 1. There was a fumble 6 in there that made it a little bit closer. But Jags look great in week 1, and they've been pretty good against the Colts at home.
Yeah. And it's a weird run for the Colts. They don't ever beat Jacksonville in Jacksonville. Last week was their first win at home for some ungodly period of time. Like they're running into all these streaks where they can't win randomly. But now you get Minshew at quarterback. I don't know that he's any worse than Richardson. He may even be a tick better, but it's different. And it's simpler, right? It's a different dynamic. You don't have to be concerned about him running, really. Certainly not as part of the designed run game. It's a different type of defense that Jacksonville has to deploy to slow that down. But I think Minshew operates this offense well. Like it's not a problem that he's their quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned the other day, Minshew's 31 for 37 in the games that he's relieved Anthony Richardson and came in after the injury. His one start was against the Ravens. I know they won it, and he made a couple plays down the stretch, but he took 5 sacks. Wasn't great necessarily in that game. But yeah, Minshew's good. He's a good, solid player.
Big development, I guess, in this offense as the season is wearing on. Remember, we said it's reaching the point that Alec Pierce looks like a problem. He's just not taking that step forward and becoming that clear number 2 that they needed him to be, or needed somebody to be, with Michael Pittman as their top guy. Just in terms of production and targets, he's being jumped by Josh Downs now, and that's a good thing, I think. Like the less he features in the offense, seemingly, the better they're going to be. So now that you've got Michael Pittman and Josh Downs as your top 2, with then tight ends and running backs, I think that's an improvement for them.
So Downs, where did he go in the 3rd round? He was I would have taken him in the 2nd. I would have been okay with that. Goes the 3rd round, 80th overall. You and I were putting Downs in the Tank Dell, Zay Flowers conversation because we were lower on Zay Flowers than others. Downs is good, man.
Yeah,
he had a nice couple big gains in the game last week. Love the way he attacks the ball at the catch point. I thought he was better than all those short receivers at attacking the catch point and winning in contested situations. So we'll see more opportunities there. And then which Jags team do we get here? They've held the Chiefs and the Bills to 37 points across 2 games. They also gave up a 30 spot plus 7 to the Texans, 7 on special teams. Can the Jags find this level of consistency? Because I think high-end Jags is pretty good, man. High-end Jags looks good.
Yeah, and obviously Downs and Alec Pierce are not directly comparable because one of them is essentially playing 80% of his snaps in the slot. The other one's playing 90% out wide. But the point being, they're not like they've moved where they're targeting. They've gone away from throwing the ball in Pierce's general direction to throwing the ball way more at Josh Downs, which is the important part.
One matchup to watch. I don't know if Bernard Ryman's going to be back at left tackle. Looks like he's questionable again. I hate it. Non-model on model crime potential here.
Non-model on
You've
model
got
crime.
If Blake Freeland, model guy, developmental tackle guy. I mean, gotta wait till 2025 before he's ready. But he's been put out there the last couple weeks. 2 really bad pass blocking grades the last couple weeks. Just not ready. Just not ready. Trayvon Walker breakout game, man. Trayvon Walker has the power.
Was Ryman a model guy?
Yes.
Good.
How about that?
Ryman's good.
Yeah. 3rd round hit.
Yeah.
Looks better than non-model first round tackles because, that's how the model works, baby. But yeah, Freeland does not look like he's ready from a pass pro standpoint. No. He'll face Josh Allen. You'll see some Trayvon Walker. The Jags will move guys around, but that's been a bit of a problem spot in pass protection. Just a matchup to watch there.
That would be huge because that changes. Like Jacksonville is still Josh Allen, the edge rusher, and nobody else in terms of pressure. Like no one else is getting consistent pressure or winning one-on-ones. If Blake Freeland being there suddenly transforms anybody on that side to being another viable pass rusher, that's a game changer for them.
Yeah, I also think the Colts have gotten decent play from their rookie corners, Juju Brents and Jalen Jones. They're out there at week 1. Calvin Ridley had his way. I think the Jags are gonna start finding their way with all their playmakers. Travis Etienne running the ball pretty well. I like the Jags. 4 is a lot, man.
Give the Jags credit for making that change, by the way, for Darius Williams. Remember the undersized, tiny cornerback, 5'9", 190. And when he signed with Jacksonville, he went from he's an outside corner with the Rams. They put him in the slot because that's what you do with 5'9" corners. And he's not a good slot corner, but he plays really well on the outside. And they made that switch last season. They're like, you know what, this isn't working. Let's put him back on the outside where he's better. And since that point, he's gone back to being as good as he's ever been.
Really
he had 2 grades for the Rams where he had an 81 point something coverage grade. And then he got hurt. He came to Jacksonville off a bad year. But then he was 64.6 when they played him last year, including the better play outside. This year, almost exclusively outside, back to 82. He's literally been essentially an 82 graded guy when he's been playing on the outside and playing a full season.
Yeah, I like Darius Williams. Good player. Him and Tyson Campbell had a breakout year last year. He's looking good again. So, look, the Jags defense has had a lot of good games. Weird one against the Texans, busted coverages and everything. It was almost like what we watched at practice. Remember we went to practice and saw the Jags defense look terrible, but everyone told us the day before they were great.
Right.
They're just inconsistent. So predicting the Jags is never fun, but I'll take them to win again and cover the 4.
I am as well. We're very aligned this week.
Very aligned so far. Carolina Panthers at the Miami Dolphins. Dolphins favored by 13.5 against the Panthers.
There's a lot of points.
Winless Panthers. Miami looking like a Super Bowl contender. They're 4-1, have the 1 loss against the Bills. Lighten up the scoreboard. Vegas expects that to continue.
Vegas expects it to continue.
The Dolphins have also had, they just beat up on the Giants offensive line, so they're 6th in pass blocking grade because that's what happens when you play the Giants. But again, the Panthers' offensive line has been in a similar world where they're just elevating opposing pass rushes. And it's not the Dolphins have talent. Like I like the Dolphins' defensive front talent more than, say, Seattle, who we talked about earlier. The Dolphins can win up front. They're a little banged up with guys like Jalen Phillips and everything, but they still have enough pieces to cause even more havoc for Bryce Young.
Yeah. Bryce Young is – the story about him is similar to Justin Fields in Chicago. It's like nothing's good. It's all bad. Nothing is working. With Bryce Young in Carolina, you've got the offensive line is bad. It's a problem. You've got the receiving core generally is a problem. Adam Thielen has shown signs of life the last few weeks, but is not what he used to be, and he's by far their best option. And you got Bryce Young, who's making the kind of silly mistakes that he didn't make in college, and may not make if he had a better situation around him, but who knows? Right now, he's part of the problem as well. And you only need to look at what Andy Dalton did when he came in to show, like, that's how far off the pace Bryce Young is currently. So everything is bad, and when everything is bad, it tends to have a compounding effect, and it becomes worse than it would be if each individual part was bad on its own. So I don't really see that changing against Miami. Miami's defense maybe hasn't become like the best unit in the NFL that people were billing it as with Vic Fangio coming in to coach it, but it's a solid unit, and Carolina has shown no real capacity to do anything on offense.
Yeah, I think, again, Panthers fans just have to keep reminding themselves that QBs will develop at different pace, and a lot of that development will be dependent on what you have around you. And if we were doing on-paper analysis before the season, on paper might not be a massive difference between Houston and Carolina, right? I mean, Houston did not look on paper like a great team. But their offensive line, as you mentioned, 6th best pass blocking grade. C.J. Stroud's getting these opportunities, and he's got a receiving core that's played extremely well. Carolina's really been – Adam Thielen has been savvy slot receiver right now who's lost a step and just knows how to get open still. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what they're working with right now. Bryce Young's not elevating them necessarily, but he's had a horrible offensive line situation. The receivers haven't been great outside of Thielen. It's just not – you're just looking for incremental improvement there on that side of the ball.
Yeah, it's rough right now. Bryce Young doesn't look good. I don't know when the appropriate point to panic on Bryce Young is, but it's probably not yet. I mean, we've been through Jared Goff, right? We understand that a guy can have a pretty awful rookie year and come good. But he's being made to look even worse by the fact that, Richardson looked good before getting hurt. And C.J. Stroud has looked amazing in a great situation relative by comparison. So, like, Bryce Young it's looking bad. In
addition to the investment that you had to make to get Bryce Young, right. Hey, there's no Marvin Harrison Jr. waiting to join the squad next year or anything like that.
Well, this is the thing. It's like now they're like, well, we're all in. We love Bryce Young. I know it looks bad, but we bought in. Now we need to go find him a number one receiver. It's like, all right, good luck with that. Where is it? Because there's no obvious one waiting just for the phone call. So I don't know quite how you're achieving that, but cool.
Meanwhile, Miami continues to just kind of look like a powerhouse here. Set the record for most yards in the NFL through 5 games.
Outside that Buffalo game, yeah.
Outside of Buffalo, right? So I think Miami. I mean, I think Miami will take care of business and win.
Which, to be fair, started like that. They just then stopped. Like, remember the first 5 drives or something in that game.
Yeah, Buffalo played a good
touchdowns.
They played a good half, or they were taking away first reads, and just played better on the back end, rushed the passer pretty well. So Miami's pretty much played a bad one half of football this season.
Yeah,
that's about it as a team. So that's why they're favored by 13.5. Like the way they're playing. Will they cover by 2 whole touchdowns? I don't think has Carolina covered anything this year. Give me Miami.
I mean, they just got beat 42-24 by the Lions.
Yeah, Miami's a powerhouse and they're playing like it.
Yeah. So
Miami's kind of like what we just said about the Lions, like beating up on bad teams. I'm not saying that's the only thing that Miami's doing, but when they're presented with the opportunity to win by a lot, they're taking it, obviously.
With authority, yeah. Yes. I mean, if they can't hang within 20 for the Lions, I don't imagine they'll be able to do it for the Miami Dolphins either.
It's in Miami. Miami game, mid-October. Starting to lose the advantage as you get to later in the season.
When does it stop?
Around now. Probably
right around now?
Yeah. That's a guess.
I know that is within 20, by the way, the game.
Washington Commanders at the Atlanta Falcons. Falcons favored by 2.5 against the Commanders. 3-2 Falcons and the 2-3 Commanders. Falcons have a chance. Them and the Saints both have a chance to, if the Lions beat the Bucs, Falcons and the Saints have first place on the line here in the NFC South.
Last week was dismal by that Washington defense. I have seldom seen, and this is bearing in mind Denver exists this year, but I've seldom seen a defense that just shows up and, like, from play number 1, nobody's getting covered on the back end, right? And Ron Rivera has taken some crap because apparently at halftime he didn't come in with like a list of fixes and a rah-rah speech and halftime adjustments. He basically let the players deal with it. He's like, go in there and figure out this shit show. Let me know when you're done, was essentially his halftime approach. And I'm honestly not sure that's the wrong approach because they weren't necessarily getting out-schemed. They just weren't covering people. They were just like, whatever. Like, this is a player failing right now. This is a failure of execution, not of scheme.
Isn't that getting out-schemed?
No, because I think the scheme was there. I mean, the safety was
there was corners not carrying verticals and cover two.
That's not a schematic failing. That's like, why aren't you doing what you're supposed to do in this play? This is like, get it together, guys. So, but I don't know. I don't know that was the wrong approach at halftime, but somebody needs to figure this out, like, from 1 week to the next, right? This was completely unacceptable, horrific defense. Guys, come on, wake up. This can't happen again. Because if it does, like, they're vulnerable to having any team put up points on them.
DJ Moore went off against them. It wasn't all the same stuff. It was, getting behind the defense. It was a little 5-yard hitch that he turned into a 60-plus yard touchdown because of a missed tackle. Have to say, my guy Emmanuel Forbes off to a rough start.
Yeah.
This year, Darius Slay was tweeting at him.
Really?
Saying, Darius Slay, because the Eagles faced them 2 weeks ago. So Slay saw him, and the Eagles beat up on him, gave up the game winner. I think it was to A.J. Brown, or the game-tying touchdown to A.J. Brown. Got whooped a little bit. Comes back the next Thursday, has another rough game. And during the game, Darius Slay said, hey, keep your head up, Forbes. They're Mississippi State guys as well, right?
Oh, okay. That makes more sense.
Keep your head up, Forbes.
Right.
I started slow as well my rookie year and this and that.
Yeah.
But it's been a rough start. Forbes has a 37 grade. And he was, first corner off the board? Second corner, because Devin Witherspoon. He was second corner off the board before Christian Gonzalez. In a bit of a surprise. So, yeah, it's been a little rough for Washington. I've seen some numbers that showed how slow Jack Del Rio defenses start, but they've definitely had seasons where they got better and got back on track. But yeah, it's disappointing, man. They were at home 4 days after taking the Eagles to overtime, and they got just destroyed by the Bears.
The one good piece of news for that defense is Chase Young maybe looks the best he's ever looked coming off that injury. He's got a ton of pressure this year. He's one of the top guys in the NFL. Not quite at the top, but he's got 27 through 4 games. That's pretty insane. Pass rush grade of 82.7. That's probably his best ever, right?
82.7?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. He was high 70s, I think, as a rookie.
Yeah, it is. So that's the best pass rushing grade he's ever had so far. He looks good. Now, the problem is it doesn't matter if the back end is just going to let receivers wander throughout it untouched like it did against Chicago, but that's a good development for them.
Yeah, there's also I know Sam Howell's on pace to be sacked
a million times,
a record number of times. With Washington's pass block grade ranks ninth in the NFL, right? And so look, I think we've informed the public enough, as much as we possibly can, that sacks are not all on the offensive line. And there are definitely some plays. If you're a Commanders fan, you're like, man, but I remember these 6 or 7 where the O-line got smashed and gave up a sack. I'm like, absolutely, that's true. But Howell's been the guy so far.
Yeah, I mean, even just in terms of volume, like you start looking, they've given up 67 total pressures as an offensive line, which is high. It's 26th in the NFL, and the Dolphins have given up the fewest at 29. But these are related to offense, right? To the quarterback, to the passing success. Like Tua getting the ball out faster than anybody else in the NFL is why Miami has only given up 29 pressures, not because the offensive line has become like the greatest line in the NFL. So Washington has given up 67, which is 26th. And in terms of pass blocking efficiency, they are 21st. But that's like, with being dragged down by the offense and the quarterback, they're like slightly below average in terms of just pressure metrics. And yet, meanwhile, Sam Howell is on pace to be sacked more than any quarterback in NFL history.
But then when he throws it, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
He missed a wide open touchdown in the Thursday night game. But right now, Sam Howell's number 6 in adjusted completion percentage. His actual completion percentage is pushing 70.
And also,
he's throwing the ball well, and he's got some big time throws in there. He's throwing the ball pretty well.
And it seems better the more they just cut him loose and say, just run the hurry-up offense. Just go drop back every play. If you need to scramble, make it happen. Act like a pinball in the pocket. Somehow bundle your way to the first down. Just keep on trucking.
That's what again, some of the plays that he's had were hilarious. There was a 2-point conversion where it looked like every player on the field got hurt because he just ran. He just run into defensive tackles. This is what we're trying to say. Like, we're seeing the game. We're watching this clean pocket. And then Howell will just run through the middle of the pocket, and the guard sitting there blocking his guy, and then all of a sudden Howell's just running past him into the guy that's being blocked, and then everybody's just falling over each other and getting hurt, and Howell's getting thrown. But that happens too often. He's got to. What's the balance here between Sam Howell, who does get the ball down the field pretty well, and just getting the ball out quickly? Some of the stuff we said about Russell Wilson through the years, Deshaun Watson, even Aaron Rodgers. How do you get this guy to play within the scheme quicker, more efficiently, but also not take away some of that big playability that he has?
He might have the best balance of any quarterback I can remember. Not between run and pass, but I mean physical balance, right? It seems almost impossible to make him fall over just by hitting him, which is not true for most quarterbacks in the NFL.
I didn't know we had it into him until that true junior season.
Yeah,
but
there are plays
playing fullback.
There are plays where he's in the pocket, hit or wrapped up, and ends up staggering backwards out of the pocket and somehow turning, and then keeping his feet and turning that into a successful scramble.
Sorry to Falcons fans here, but Desmond Ritter's playing at home, where the dude doesn't lose.
Hasn't lost ever.
You got Bijan. We saw last week the Falcons did a much better job getting their playmakers open. If the Commanders' defense plays the way they did last week, I think Kyle Pitts and Drake London have another big game here thrown down the field. So I'll take Atlanta to cover the 2.5. I don't love it.
No. I mean, I don't think that Desmond Ridder is going to back up what we saw last week, because that was by far the best performance we've seen from him for a while. But if he's dealing with wide the hell open receivers all day long, that's going to help. Bijan Robinson looks spectacular. They don't lose at home.
But they play a lot of 1- and 2-point games, apparently.
Yeah.
Beat Green Bay by 1, beat the Texans by 2. They're favored by 2.5 here.
Man, it's such a weird game between outlier performances. Can Washington's defense be that bad again? Can Desmond Ridder be that good again? These things work in conjunction. I don't know how that's going to go.
You might be talking me into it the other way here. You're right.
You're swapping?
Yeah, give me Washington.
All right. Well, I'm going to take Atlanta because Desmond Ridder doesn't lose at home.
You don't want to pick the same thing as me.
Yeah,
all right, we got to go a little bit quicker through some of these games, and I promise I will. New England Patriots at the Las Vegas Raiders. This is the one I don't want to spend a lot of time. I don't think this needs its own YouTube cut-up, even. We don't even need to chop this one up. We've spoken about the Patriots plenty this week. So if you want more Patriots analysis, go to yesterday's show. We talked about them for over 30 minutes. But Raiders favored by 3. Raiders coming off that Monday Night Football win. Josh McDaniels, remember, going in, said it feels like we're close. And now they've won 1 game in a row. He's right.
We're there.
Maybe they're close. It's a huge game. I mean, Vegas they have a chance to get to 3-3 here and knock New England to 1-5. Josh McDaniels maybe auditioning for his next head coaching job
in New England
against the Patriots. I'm just saying. All right, Vegas is favored by 3 here. Can New England get back on track here on the road against the Raiders?
I mean, they need to stop turning the ball over at such a crazy rate. That's been if you were describing the strengths of Mac Jones, if they existed, you would be saying accurate, good decision maker, takes care of the football. Only none of those things are true at the moment. He's not taking care of the football. He's throwing the ball to the defense. He's not completing, a ton of passes. All of the things that are supposed to be his calling card have been terrible the last few weeks. If that continues, this is why they're getting waxed by 30 points every week.
And he's going up against a Raiders defense that, again, you look on paper coming into the season, and it was all right, who's there to help Max Crosby? Guys who have played well in the past, but, they've been inconsistent. They're playing much better, I think, as a unit than I expected. The Raiders defense, my guy Amik Robertson sealed the deal with the interception the other day against the Packers. He's playing well since coming back. Trayvon Merrick at safety, playing much better after he had a really nice rookie season 2 years ago, rough sophomore campaign last year. He's playing much better. Divine Diablo flying around the field making plays, former safety turned linebacker. I've been impressed with this Raiders defense.
I want to know how Bill Belichick and the Patriots are going to scheme up a solution to Max Crosby, because number one, he's their primary weapon on defense. Number two, he lines up over one of the biggest weak spots the Patriots have. Like, they have a banged up offensive line. Even with the banged up offensive line, there's a couple of spots that are stronger than other spots. Right tackle's a problem. And now right tackle is lining up where Crosby lines up basically every single snap. So we've seen the last few weeks that guy can be in the backfield every play. And if you don't have, like, what is your fix to that? Are you just going to chip him every play?
Oh,
are you going to double team him straight with an extra lineman every play?
Hunter Henry's probably going to be standing right next to, is Verdarian Lowe starting, Calvin Anderson, whoever's there.
Either way, that's the focus for New England basically for this entire week. In addition to, hey, Mac, can you stop throwing the ball to the defense?
It's funny because I thought you were going to say how are they going to scheme up for Devontae Adams.
No.
On the other side, because similar question. I think if the Raiders defense keeps playing pretty well here, I think their offense kind of reminds me of the Saints. Like, they're close. Garoppolo still solid. He had a terrible interception that he threw into triple coverage, but led the comeback attempt.
Classic Jimmy.
Like, there'll be a couple of those in the game, but they're still good. With Devontae Adams wasn't fed early in that game, but Jacoby Myers was. They have options on offense. I think they're close, and they haven't even really tapped into Josh Jacobs in the run game yet. I think the Raiders are going to be pretty competitive here this year.
I wonder if moving
forward here.
This is the game that basically ends Mac Jones as a starter. I mean,
Bailey Zappi's done nothing to think that he's good. He had a couple decent starts last year. In
the Marcus Mariota realm of, at some point, the guy plays himself to the bench and it doesn't matter who's sitting there as number two. You just have to make a change. Like, they have, quote-unquote, benched Mac Jones a couple of times already when the game has been, like, wildly out of hand. And then Belichick circles back to, no, he's still our quarterback. It's not all him. In large part, I would imagine, because of exactly what you're saying. Like, the alternative is Bailey Zappi, who doesn't look any better. But there reaches a point where you can't. I mean, he's got 7 turnover-worthy plays in the last 2 games. And an adjusted completion rate over that time of like 62%. That's catastrophically bad. Like, at some point, you just have to go, I don't care who the backup is, put him in.
There's a lot of things that are must-watch, not because it's going to be great, but I just want to see how New England responds here. You have Belichick saying things like, we're going to start over, this, whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
Like, how drastic is this? Is the offense going to look completely different? How? What can you do differently?
Well, it's funny because he's now run out. Like, you used to say, if there was one coach that had, like, the credit in the bank to do something completely, like, one of the reasons these sort of crazy, like, mastermind tank jobs don't happen is because the coach doesn't have the real estate to get that done. Like, he goes tanking for a year, the owner gets twitchy and goes, get out of here, I need to win. Bill Belichick was like the one guy where you would say he's got so much credit in the bank, he could do whatever he wants, even if it means like an 0-16 season, because, it's Bill Belichick. Now, it's not true anymore. Now we're looking at the schedule, and even unintentionally losing this number of games, you're like, it might be time to get rid of Bill.
Well, unless behind closed doors he is saying we see the QB class, we're gonna go do it.
Maybe.
All right, Vegas favored by 3 here.
I'm buying into it. Vegas, baby.
Raiders by 3, huh?
Covering 3.
I'll take New England because I don't think it can be as bad. Remember last year the Raiders won by 6, right? Because in the tie game, they had the lateral 6 to Chandler Jones, which was ridiculous. So, yeah, the Raiders won it last year and did cover as well. I don't know why I would take New England. It's the last week I'll take New England. This is their last chance.
One more chance.
All right, one of the games of the week. This should have been the game of the week. Detroit Lions at the Tampa Bay Bucks. Lions favored by 3 against the Bucks. They moved this game. They heard our complaining here on the PFF NFL podcast. They said, stop putting 9 games at 1 and 3 at 4. Well, they put a solid 4th game into the 4 o'clock window now so that my YouTube multi-view will be nice and even, right? We'll have one game in each. We got all 4 games on one view. Lions favored by 3 in Tampa Bay.
Yeah. I mean, the Lions look fantastic right now. Offense is humming. They've done it without key parts of the offense as well, like missing players, Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Way more importantly, Jared Goff playing as well as any quarterback in the NFL. Ben Johnson is still cooking as an offensive coordinator, dialing up trick plays, dialing up just good plays, period. And the defense has been fantastic. Aiden Hutchinson looking like one of the best edge rushers, defenders, period, in the NFL. I mean, dude, that Aiden Hutchinson, Trayvon Walker thing is starting to look rough from a Jacksonville perspective.
However, we know Goff and the offense is a little better at home than on the road. Not saying they can't win on the road. They beat Kansas City in Kansas City. They pretty much beat up on the Packers in Green Bay, so it's not impossible. But Tampa Bay playing at home, and their defense has been solid. For Tampa Bay, I guess my question is, they've got 3 wins. Week 1 against Minnesota, Week 2 against the Bears, when before the Bears showed signs of life. They got beat up pretty bad against the Eagles. So the 2 good teams they've played, say the Eagles and the Saints. Their most impressive win is absolutely against the Saints, division game, and they really took it to them, the Bucs. But we're putting the Lions in this Eagles, Niners, best team in the NFC conversation. So this is the biggest challenge here for the Bucs, who have been one of the biggest surprises of the week of the year so far. So that's why it's one of the better games. Bucs are in first in the NFC South, and the Bucs are actually pass protecting well. Their offensive line grading extremely well. Will the Lions be able to get any pressure on Baker Mayfield this week? Aiden Hutchinson, as you mentioned, leading the league in pressures. He's tearing it up. Detroit's getting more help from him, from others over the last couple weeks, but against a pretty good Bucs offensive line, I don't know if we'll be able to see that. Baker Mayfield might be able to move the ball.
One of the interesting stats so far this season is Baker Mayfield he's one of the best graded quarterbacks in the NFL under pressure. His passer rating under pressure is 125, which is the best in the NFL. That's
when you read that, you're supposed to say, well, that's unsustainable.
Yes.
Credit. Good job. Impressive so far. But it's unsustainable.
It's going back to 2017 Carson Wentz, right? It is descriptive. Like, this is one of the reasons Baker Mayfield has looked good and the offense has been doing a good job. It is, however, very unsustainable and inevitably will come back down to earth at some point. So I think that's a relevant thing. These are 2 of the best schemes in the NFL, and are maybe the only 2 schemes in the NFL that are cooking that don't have an obvious Shanahan connection tree, right? Like, neither Ben Johnson nor Dave Canales have come from that system, right?
Don't believe so, yeah.
So that's kind of interesting. Like, Dave Canales and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they're I would imagine they're pretty high up on those lists of stats you've been reading out before, of like performance in first look, that kind of thing, because they have answers. They've been dialing up Baker Mayfield some really good stuff. Yeah. He has not had to go deep into his progression that much. They, I think, are the best team in the NFL on like third downs. They always have somewhere to go with the ball. The receivers will help that, etc. But a lot of that scheme. And then Ben Johnson, as we said, since last year has been as good as anybody at dialing up awesome plays.
I think what's interesting is Canales he was the QB coach in Seattle last year.
Right.
And Seattle's receiving core of DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, just such a good 1-2 punch, and they rely on those guys. And the Bucs have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Now, Evans is banged up with a hamstring. Remember, he left the Saints game, hamstring injury. They're coming off a bye, but we know hamstrings are an issue. Do you have a boo-boo breakdown this week to maybe go through?
Always.
What Evans could be looking at here? But Evans and Godwin have been the guys. Now, Evans is better than Godwin and a bigger impact player. Godwin's more of a possession type, and Evans is your big play guy that's going to, win in the red zone and, get behind the defense and everything. I do think that's a huge factor, though. If they don't have Evans, as promising as, Trey Palmer has been as a rookie and little Devin Tompkins, like those guys are cool and all. But
Devin Tompkins.
He's tiny. He's really small, but a good receiver. Those guys are fun and all, but
you can't do that to people.
It does feel like losing Mike Evans would be a huge blow to this offense in Baker Mayfield.
He is 5'8". That's pretty small.
Yeah. Like 165. 150.
155 is
There
his
you go.
listed weight.
So he's little.
Yeah, I mean, if I outweigh you by 30 pounds, you're pretty small.
Yeah.
Not quite 30, but you know.
I love how everything's based off you. Very self-centered.
Well, I'm a normal-sized human being. I am, in fact, the template by which human beings should be measured.
So what
not
if
you?
What if I'm twice as
Then you're a
heavy?
very large human being.
I'm almost twice as heavy as little Devin
Yes.
Tompkins.
You are, in fact, yeah, you're over a foot taller than him, possibly,
I'm average NBA height.
and twice his weight-ish.
Detroit's run game, get big Vita Vea
He's big.
on the interior. Vita Vea has 200 pounds on Devin Tompkins, by the way. Just saying. Vita Vea in the middle against this. I'm buying into this, like,
He's more than twice his
watching
weight.
David Montgomery as this battering ram running back for Detroit. I have a thing for the offenses that make you defend different styles of player. And the Lions are getting to that point where, look, Montgomery's not Derrick Henry or anything like that, but he's tough to tackle. That old phrase that Brandon Staley used, you have to, get off blocks in the run game. You have to be physical against the Lions because of the way Montgomery plays. But you also have finesse as well, because they're going to get Khalif Raymond behind the defense, and Sam Laporta is one of the best tight ends in space, and he's athletic. Jamison Williams is back. You have to have answers for different styles of player, and I think it's working really well for this Detroit offense.
Yeah, Montgomery's a perfect running back for that scheme. I mean, he is really good operating in small areas between the tackles, maximizes what's there, and if you can get a bit of push, he's going to get a ton of yardage. Did you see Dan Campbell talking about him? Like, as the battering ram they wanted to go after and prioritize? And he was sort of saying, like, Jahmyr Gibbs was always intended to be this change-up, a guy we can get touches, but not carries necessarily. And it's like, yeah, it's just interesting how the language is starting to change around Jahmyr Gibbs from, like, positionless offensive weapon trademark, a guy that's going to change everything, to he's our change of pace back who'll get some catches. Like, okay, those aren't strictly speaking mutually exclusive. They are, however, a change in emphasis from, like, this is going to be the most amazing thing you've ever seen to, like, yeah, he's the scat back.
I mean, that's also, you took him at 12, right? That's the only issue, is you took him at 12, and people look at and they say, well, you can get non-change of pace players at 12.
But that's why I think
starters. You can get Christian Gonzalez to start a corner for all plays, not change of pace.
Right. That's why I think that shift in language is significant, because the only way of justifying taking him at 12 was, this is going to be something you've never seen before. We're going to have him all over the place. He's going to be deployed everywhere. You're not going to know where he lines up or how he's going to kill you, but he's going to kill you. And now it's like, I mean, he's the scat back. When Monty's on the sideline on third downs, we're gonna throw him a check down somewhere, and maybe he'll take it to the house.
All that said, I mean, it would be unfair of us to only focus on the running back that they picked at 12, given the team building effort that the Lions have made.
Yeah,
in the last
everything else they've done has looked fantastic. I mean,
O-line
Sam
looks
Laporta,
outstanding. The mix of offensive skill players that I was just talking about, the defensive improvement since week 7 or 8 last year, it's all outstanding. So
Sam Laporta has looked like the best rookie tight end, certainly the most productive one. Part of that's being a big part of the offense. From an opportunity standpoint, Brian Branch might be the best defender to come into the NFL this season. Honestly, it's one of those ones. Remember the Raiders a few years ago? It's like, if you just reorder this, just change the number you drafted them. Like, if you told me they picked the same 4 players as the first 4 picks,
Branch, Laporta,
Jack Campbell and Jahmyr Gibbs, and Gibbs was the 4th one taken, perfect.
Yeah. That's why you draft in volume, man. All right, man. Lions favored by 3. I think I'm taking Detroit here.
Oh, I'm definitely taking Detroit. Team looks awesome right now.
Yeah, they do look great. Philadelphia Eagles at the New York Jets. Eagles favored by 7 here against the Jets. Eagles also 5-0. Jets moved to 2-3 with their win last week against the Broncos. Mm-hmm. It's funny, I've got these records off the top of my head right now that's going to run out at some point. We're early enough in the season that it's in my head, but at some point I will forget teams' records. I like that there's not been a tie yet to
That
really
will
throw
help.
things
Yeah,
off.
that does help.
That also helps Mike Florio's power rankings. It's hard to put ties in there with the record. It's a lot cleaner when you don't have those.
It's true. It's a lot easier.
What are you looking for in this one? Eagles on the road here against the Jets.
I feel for the Jets defense, because they're in one of these spots. Who was it? It was Green Bay's defense. Was it Jair Alexander was saying, we basically are treating this at the moment like we need to score, or we need to not allow a score in order for us to win the game.
I only saw the quote, not the tone or
Same,
the
I haven't seen
context, but the quote was like, hey, we can't give up any touchdowns.
I'm not even saying it's a negative thing
It
necessarily.
sounds like a dig at the offense
Right.
when you read it. I don't know what the tone was.
But I'm not even from Jair Alexander's point. The point being, like, they're in this space right now where, as a group, as a defense, they're thinking we probably need to score to win games, right? And the Jets have been there for a while. The Jets have been there since 4 snaps into the first game of the season, thinking if we have any shot of winning this game, we either need to pitch a shutout or to actually put up points ourselves. And that's just such a crappy space to be in as a defense, because the league's not really like that anymore. It's too hard. Yeah, you can pitch a shutout, but you're probably not going to, even if you have an amazing defense. The Baltimore Ravens, one of the greatest defenses of all time, an NFL record, gave up 10 points a game, right? So, like, the best you can possibly hope to do is to give up 10 points in the course of a game, and that might not be enough.
For some perspective, you go to PFF.com, use Greenline, and you can check out all the game matchups. It's really great because you could see not only the spread, but all team metrics side by side and all these comparisons, right? The Jets right now, 14th in PFF power rankings, 4th in defense, 32nd in offense. And our power rankings aren't going to just be, I don't know when they fully switch, but they do take into account historical performance. It's not just through 5 weeks where it's a tighter sample size. It's everything that we know about the Jets players, right? Their offensive line, Zach Wilson, their receivers. So they rank 32nd right now, and you feel it, right? I mean, they won with defense last week against the Broncos. They stayed competitive with the Chiefs because the defense kept them in it. And that was their best offensive performance. Mm-hmm. The Jets just feel like they need to have the Breece Hall big run, right? You need to have him rattle one off for 70. You need Zach Wilson to play clean football. Every week we talk about the Eagles' defensive line, and when they have a big mismatch against the opposing offensive line, it's really tough to overcome. I think we see another one of those this week.
Yeah. Good news for the Jets offense, though, is that they are like, it is Breece Hall now. It's not, they're not keeping him on a pitch count. They're not limiting him. He's back 100%, and he is by far their most dangerous offensive weapon because Garrett Wilson is dependent on the quarterback, right?
Yep.
So the fact that Breece Hall can now get as much as they're comfortable giving him in terms of workload, I mean, that's maximizing what they can do on offense.
The other perspective for the Jets defense, I know we completely blamed Josh Allen in week 1 for his implosion, but we are at a point where we're seeing multiple quarterbacks pretty much have their worst game of the season against this Jets defense. So passing grades against the Jets so far, the best passing grade we've seen is Dak Prescott, 66.7. Mac Jones was 57, Josh Allen 52, Patrick Mahomes 48, Russell Wilson 43. That's another way of saying the frustration for the Jets. The defense is making pretty good quarterbacks look not so good, or average in Dak's case. 10 turnover-worthy plays between Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, and Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
So, if they could do that again with Jalen Hurts, put him into some tough spots, have him turn the ball over a couple times, they'd potentially keep it close. But I don't know. The Eagles just look that much better. Every single game we see here, too, it's like, man, if Aaron Rodgers was under center, it'd be a pretty exciting game.
Right. I mean, even
storylines would be so different.
Even with an offensive line that struggled and it's getting, Elijah Vera-Tucker gone for the season, I think now, like it's potentially getting more banged up. But even with an offensive line that's still a potential issue, you would be like, any version of Aaron Rodgers is going to, give them a pretty good shot of winning these games.
All right, man, where are you going with this one? 7 points for the Eagles, favored on the road here.
That is a lot of points given how good this Jets defense is. However, I feel like they might be worth it. I'm going to go with the Eagles.
Give me the Jets. They'll keep it up defensively as I wipe my face.
Yeah?
Like when John Lynch was like, I feel good about Trey Lance. Scratching his head. Yeah, he's figuring it out. That's me picking the Jets right now. Don't love it. I'll take the Jets as home underdogs, though. Arizona Cardinals at the Los Angeles Rams. Rams favored by 7 against the feisty Cardinals. Last game in the 4 o'clock window here. As we've said before, both of these teams have been far more fun to watch than we anticipated coming into the season.
No, absolutely. Arizona is not going to give you any easy game. Even last week against the Bengals, the score got away from them, but it was like a couple of fluky interceptions. Like, not necessarily the best decision in the world, but I don't know if either of them deserve to be picked off, and certainly not return for a touchdown and actually make a big impact on the score. They are going to fight for every inch, and they've been doing a good job of it this season.
Yeah, I think, with the Rams, I'm kind of like, the Rams are favored by 7, so obviously the man in Vegas thinks they're going to win and win handily. I am intrigued to see more of this Rams offense here. They played the Eagles last week, but more of this Rams offense with Cooper Kupp back, with Puka Nacua as the breakout player that he's been, the inconsistent offensive line that they've just been completely hit or miss. That's always going to be the issue with McVay's offense, but I'm intrigued at seeing this offense moving forward with more weapons.
Can the Cardinals generate the kind of pass rush to cause problems for that offensive line, right?
Beyond the Barbarian, I don't know.
And even the Barbarian, the dude has 9 pressures on the season.
Come on.
I'm just saying.
4 sacks still.
He does have 4 sacks.
Sacks matter if it's from the Barbarian.
You sure? Certainly for a bet standpoint.
Yeah.
But the point being, it's not like, it's not, do you know who their highest pressure total is?
Cameron Thomas?
Nope.
Who?
It's not Cameron Thomas. It's not the Barbarian. It is
Zaven Collins.
No.
Who is
certified baller, Victor Dimukeji.
Oh, yeah. That's why you love him.
Yeah. So, and it's 12. So it's not like this has not been the best pass rushing unit in the NFL. It feels like the kind of game where the Rams' offensive line will hold up and be okay, and that tends to lead to that offense actually looking very good. Particularly when, that results in the coverage unit for Arizona trying to cover Cooper Kupp and
this is where I don't think it's enough. I like the Rams to block it up better than they have against the Eagles and the Bengals and teams that have better pass
Cardinals. So the Barbarian has 9 pressures, 4 of which are sacks.
He's a sack specialist.
Zaven Collins has 5 pressures, 3 of which are sacks. What is happening to this group? Even Dimukeji, 25% of his pressures are sacks.
When they get home, when they get pressure, they get home. That's
Almost all of them. It's bizarre.
Josh Dobbs has a 65 grade here through 5 weeks. Continues to just play well, play solid football.
Literally every single player, except Jonathan Ledbetter, has an above-average rate of turning pressure into sacks. If they have a sack, they have an above-average rate at converting it from the pressure volume that they've had. That's bizarre. How is that happening?
I don't know, man. They're not going to keep it up. Not this week. Rams are going to win and cover.
I believe the Rams will win, but I do not believe they will cover.
All right, I'll take him cover in the 7. Oh, Sunday Night Football. Oh, I'm rubbing my face again. Giants and the Bills. Bills are only favored by 14.
Only favored by 14.
Yeah, feels low.
We're probably not getting Daniel Jones, right, with his neck injury.
It sounds like he thinks he's going to play.
He sounds like he's in pain.
Yeah, but I thought it was like he's not practicing, but we still think he's going to play.
It's A, not like the man protects himself. B, not like anybody else is protecting him either.
Saquon Barkley still limited at practice. Darren Waller, questionable.
Can you imagine how bummed Brian Daboll is going to be during and after this game? I came from there where it looks great.
Yeah.
And I'm supposed to be building that here, and now I've got a quarterback who was injured coming into the game who may well be more injured after the game. I've got the worst offensive line in the NFL. My offense, period, looks like garbage.
Unless Tyrod balls out.
And I have to go shake hands with all my buddies from over there, patronizing me, being like, keep your chin up, Brian. You'll get there.
He's the head coach. You're a money solves everything guy. He's got that head coach paycheck.
He did have a nice truck when he rolled in there.
Yeah. Oh, that was the best video. rolled in. Like Matlock.
Trudging in his suit.
That was great.
Dude, that was rough.
We have their offense only power ranked 20th.
Yeah.
It was funny because Daniel Jones, he graded pretty well the other day. He had two really nice throws that fell incomplete, didn't show up anywhere on the stat sheet. He's still tough to even gauge Daniel Jones and what you get out of him. We're heading into year 5 of Daniel Jones, and never has he ever really had a good supporting cast. I mean, last year you would say it looks like the play calling was great and they played to his strengths, but the actual receivers he was throwing to, it was like, wow, how did that work? They did a good job coaching staff. So Jones has never really had a great situation. On top of that, he's just taken a beating. Now he's hurt.
He is.
Whether he plays or Tyrod plays, I mean, the Bills, we keep forgetting how good the Bills are because they'll lose a couple games here and there, but they're still that team that beats up on bad teams.
Feel sorry for Tyrod, too. He's going to have to go with his whole team, and they're going to kick his ass as well.
And Tyrod's not exactly – I mean, he gets rid of the ball way slower than Daniel Jones.
He's not the guy he was when he was at Buffalo, and that was bad enough that everyone was like, when are we getting rid of Tyrod? Daniel Jones is now the second most pressured quarterback in the NFL. Somehow Justin Fields, with the combination of how he plays the game, is actually pressured on more of his dropbacks than Daniel Jones. But 46% for Daniel Jones, which is the line, I think, for just non-viable tends to be 45. 46 can't work. And he has the second worst passing grade whilst under pressure, worse than everybody except DTR, who was so bad that they went, okay, we've seen one game of that. You're not playing anymore. We're going to go find PJ. So the Daniel Jones thing, it's like he's under pressure more than basically anybody else in the NFL, and he's worse whilst under pressure than anybody else in the NFL. Those two things together result in awfulness, start to finish.
Waiting all day for Sunday night, baby.
And Buffalo's now rolling in.
Mad. Mad. After they had to waste a home game in London.
Just had to go to London.
Yeah.
I would hate that. Can you imagine you as a large human being, transatlantic flight? I mean, okay, they're probably in business class, but still.
No, it's horrible. Sounds terrible. I mean, in the annual or the weekly, hey, we get to see Wink Martindale, his aggressive scheme.
You can probably go back to being crazy now.
Now it's crazy.
Yeah.
Because it's not working.
Right.
It hasn't been terrible, but, it's not great. So Josh Allen against the Giants and their defense, they're leaving Cordell Flott on an island against Tyreek Hill. So Stephon Diggs will have some on an island plays. The chance that the Giants have to win this is Josh Allen throws the ball to the defense or misses some of those deep opportunities, right? Those big play opportunities, but there'll be some in this game. I expect the Bills to do what they do against when they have double-digit spreads. I don't have the numbers in front of me. It does feel like the Bills come through and take care of business.
There is one player on the entire Giants team who has a PFF grade above 77, sorry. You know who that is?
Isaiah Simmons?
No.
Oh, Dexter Lawrence.
Yes.
Yeah, Dexter's been great.
Dexter Lawrence, literally repeating what he did last year. The guy by far leads the NFL in total pressures from anybody that has serious snaps lining up at nose tackle. Like, he's doing exactly what he did last year. He's become one of the best players in the NFL, and everything around him is bad, so it doesn't really show up anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, Dexter's awesome. Buffalo's going to be without Matt Milano, of course. He's injured. Daquan Jones. They had a very costly game in London last week.
Yeah.
I think that'll certainly matter more later in the season in bigger games. But, yeah, I like the Bills to cover the 14 here.
Yeah.
Green Line does not. Green Line's got a little edge for the Giants here. But I'll take the Bills.
Does it get better or worse with Tyrod at quarterback?
I don't think it's probably worse.
Same.
I don't think there's much of a difference.
Uh-huh.
I don't know how you do that statistically because we haven't seen Tyrod in a few years.
Right.
And so if you just pull data, it would be like, well, his data is similar to Daniel Jones historically. But he's been sitting there as a backup the last couple of years, either because he's worse, right? Probably because he's worse. And then you have like rust factor and all that, so who knows?
Yeah, like we don't have no idea what current Tyrod Taylor really looks like.
Yeah.
Except it's probably not as good as it used to be.
I mean, the last few times that we saw him, Brown
bad.
starter, Charger starter,
Yeah.
not very good at
No.
all. All right, let's wrap it up. Monday Night Football, Dallas Cowboys at the Los Angeles Chargers. Cowboys coming off the beating against the Niners, but they're favored by 2.5 going up against the Chargers. Back-to-back West Coast games for the Cowboys here.
Back-to-back West Coast. Well, the last one went so well. So
Yeah, not so great. I know our friend Bob Sturm last week talking about the Cowboys. I can't remember the exact stat that he said, but the Mike McCarthy era has not been – they haven't been many losing streaks.
Right, they
There's
bounced
been
back
bad
well.
losses, but they usually don't put 2 back-to-back. And as bad as it feels for the Cowboys, it's – you know, you have to remember they're still a very good team. They've they might just – are they either just like a terrible matchup for the Niners or they're just in a different tier of good team than the Niners? I think it can be both.
yeah.
But I think
was
it's
both.
important maybe not to overreact to that one game against the Niners.
I think it was both, and that was the problem, is they ran in there. They're potentially overmatched anyway. Like the 49ers right now look like a pretty unstoppable juggernaut. But I also think they had a bad game plan. Like they went in with this sort of let's do what we do, not what's going to work to combat what they do. And it didn't work. It really didn't work. But I feel like the Chargers are actually not a bad matchup for them. Their defense maybe is ticked up slightly, but it's still pretty rough. So you would expect Dallas to be able to get something done against the Chargers defense, which was part of the problem. Like, had Dallas been able to go toe-to-toe and, you know, put some points on the board against San Francisco, maybe things wouldn't have gotten as out of hand on the other side of the ball, and Dallas's defense wouldn't have sort of reached the point where they're like tapping out, just trying to get out of the game as they were. So from that point of view, I think they're going to put up some points against the Chargers. They'll probably have some success. Now the question is, how does their defense do after getting embarrassed and, you know, really beaten up, bullied?
Chargers coming off a bye. Last time we saw them, they were beaten up on Aiden O'Connell, but still only beat the Raiders by 7 in Aiden O'Connell's first start. It was the first real signs of life from Khalil Mack. He had 6 sacks in that game. The pass rush was much better. As much as I was trashing the Broncos defense earlier this show, Chargers defense has not been good this year.
No.
But I'm expecting better, right? Like I'm expecting them to turn a corner at some point. And I don't think they play the Chiefs in week 7. It might sound weird, but I feel like the Chargers have as good a chance as any to finally get over the hump and beat the Chiefs this year. I still think they're a very good team. This is one of the awesome games this week, I think. Love that we get to see it on Monday Night Football. Justin Herbert against a good Cowboys defense. They just got torn to shreds by the 49ers, but it's still a very good defense. This is good matchups on both sides of the ball here. And the best part is we're going to wake up Tuesday morning and Brandon Staley's going to either be a genius or get fired because he went for it on 4th and 1 from his own 6. Right? That's what's going to happen. You know that's going to happen on Monday Night Football, right? It's going to come down to there's a 4th and 2.5, and Brandon Staley's going to go for it. And it's either going to win the game or like Dallas is going to hit a chip shot field goal to win it instead or something. That's what's going to happen on Monday night. It's going to be great. Hear Troy talking about the analytics and what it says, and it's actually going to agree with Brandon Staley, and everybody's going to be mad that it agrees with Staley. It's going to be awesome.
You get the feeling Joe Buck just irritated when he has to mention the word analytics, you know?
Nah, Joe's great.
He sort of, I don't know, the way that he articulates the word analytics, sort of, you get the sense that it annoys him, that he even has to bring it up.
That's his normal tone, man.
I mean, that's possible.
That is just the normal tone.
I'm going Dallas.
You're taking Dallas? Do you have a heart out right now?
Not right now, but
it's coming up soon.
It's coming up.
Just wondering.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I expect – I'm torn here because I expect the Chargers to get better because it's the Chargers. Got to have faith in the Chargers.
Do you?
Until they break your heart. So I expect them to get better.
Okay.
But I also don't want to overreact. Dallas bounces back, man. They bounce back. That's why they're favored by 2.5.
I think they bounce back on offense, certainly. The question is going to be like how good a job does their defense do against the Chargers offense, which I think is a pretty good unit. So that to me is like the side of the ball that's going to determine it.
The part of I can't figure out the Cowboys though because why is Brandon Cooks not a part of the offense? Why can't they figure out Brandon Cooks? Brandon Cooks was QB proof his entire life. Not even QB proof. He's had good QBs,
Right.
but it didn't matter. He always produced every system, every situation.
And then,
Why?
I don't know. To an extent, I think it's because they don't necessarily need it right now. Like in the games where they've done well, they haven't needed Brandon Cooks, and in the games where they haven't done anything, I don't think Brandon Cooks was changing that. The other dynamic at play here is Austin Eckler comes back for the Chargers almost certainly, and I do believe he makes a significant difference to that offense.
He ran like crazy in week 1.
Yeah.
So there's a part of me that just wants to believe in Dallas bouncing back, but the other part is my Chargers favoritism. I'm going with the Chargers here. I can't wait for this game on Monday Night Football. I think it's a great matchup.
We got some live feedback on the Twitter machine from from our segment the other day discussing which animals we would be able to beat to death single-handedly. Patrick Claybon, the NFL Network host, TV superstar, tweeted at me saying, "A breath-holding contest with a whale is the most bananas thing I've heard all week, man. Come on."
Who said that?
Remember, I was speculating whether you could beat a whale simply by plugging up its blowhole.
The way he just, yeah. I get it.
Now, look, nobody ever said I couldn't bring oxygen whilst doing this. And also, who says the whale is in the water at the time? You know, I would like my chances against a land-born whale.
It's my favorite thing about doing the show is running into the people that I didn't know listened to it.
Right.
When they tell me that they did.
Until they listen to the dumbest thing you talked about that week.
There's like, there's at least, there's people at NFL Network. We run into Mina, and she was like quoting some of our stuff. I'm like, you listen? That was 4 or 5 years ago.
Right.
I didn't know you listened to the show. There's at least one NFL GM and his, assistant GM that listen. They're like, oh, I love listening.
They never
catch up on the rest of the week.
They never pull you up on your Chargers take, right? It's always, you think you could take a whale, huh?
Yeah.
No,
he called
they
you.
Always remember those things.
Yeah. Not your terrible picks or anything like that. I'd also like to apologize. Jags fans are gone now, but I did misspeak. Walker Little started at guard the other day, not at tackle. Mm-hmm. But then he did get hurt.
Yes.
So, Cam Robinson did not fill in for him. Cam Robinson did start at left tackle. All right, man. That's it. Week 6 preview show is in the books.
Done.
So you'll be back here tomorrow reviewing Chiefs-Broncos.
Yes.
And then I'll be back here on Monday. So thanks to everybody for tuning in. We'll see you again tomorrow or Monday. Enjoy Week 6 NFL action.